I'm Emery Boxman. I was a navigator in the B-17 in the 8th Air Force. And we were shot down on our 23rd mission over occupied France. There's a lot of farmers out there who were willing to help me, but they weren't afraid to. So I was taken into custody and kept in for 10 months, waiting for the end of the war. But it was, if you're going to be a prisoner of war, I had the ideal setup. Hermann Goering had decided that he wanted his pilots to be treated well if they got shot down. So he had a policy of treating the Allied officers, flying officers, very well, as well as they could. So we had more like a vacation time, except that we were confined. And I feel almost guilty when I compare my being a POW to some of those in Vietnam or Korea or even Japan. But I'm glad I was able to do it, and I appreciate being here and having the recognition.
I was aboard the USS Pueblo when it was captured by the Armed Forces of North Korea in 1968 and held captive for 11 months. And the sad thing is that the Pueblo is still sitting there in POW-MIA, North Korea, and it's still a commissioned ship of the United States Navy, still commissioned. And we've been trying for a long time to get this thing back. And of course the North Koreans, we can't deal with them, they still won't deal with us. And so nothing's been forgotten, but so we have reunions every 2 years now. We used to have them every 5 years, but some of us are starting to pass on, we won't get to see them too often. We have them every 5 years, so we have one next year in Eureka, California. But it's always nice to come out here and to see, there are not many of us left, and especially from World War II. And I was here the last time they had this, you know, and I was always impressed with the guy. Most of them here were from captured in Germany, flying over in Germany from the Air Force. And it was a real pleasure to meet them. I'm glad you're here today. Thank you.
Leonard Hughes was a B-29 pilot flying over to Tokyo, night bombing, and he's missing in action. He's in the bottom of the ocean over there. They got blown out of the sky, and the co-pilot did get blown out of the airplane, opened his chute, hit the water about the same time. He was a POW in Japan at the end of the war. The only survivor out of 11 men. Myself, I was a B-24 pilot flying out of Italy. I thought of something this morning, you know, the song about the Air Force, we live in fame, go down in flame. A lot of us went down in flame, and I did too. Spent 6 months in Stalag Luft in Germany.
Air Force, flying out of England, and we got shot down on our 17th mission, and we got hit over the target, which was Munich area, and we got back to occupied France, and we had a 13-man crew. We were what you call a MIGI ship. That was a radar, and 7 guys got away, 5 of us got captured, and 1 was killed, parachuting out. Anyway, I went to Stalag Luft 4, which is by the Baltic Sea, and we were there until February, and then the Russians were getting close, so we walked for 86 days, approximately 600 miles. And when we got liberated, that was a lot of fun.
And on the last mission that I went on, we were going to Hungary, to Budapest, and it was getting back to the numbers like the Master Sergeant was telling us about. We had 400 airplanes, both 17s and 24s going over there, but our group was the final group, and we were carrying incendiaries. And we got attacked by NLO 90s, and it ended up that we got a couple, I guess 20 millimeters into our incendiary bomb load, and the whole airplane was afire in short order. Our group of 24 only, we lost 5 airplanes on that day. Another thing that I'd like to talk about is that in 2005 we went back to Budapest, and we had contact with a historian group from Hungary, and they were able to take me right to the site where my plane crashed. They identified it by the tail numbers, and anyhow, it was, I had, as far as they were concerned, I was the only one there going back to Hungary to see where their plane crashed.
LOOF stands for officers, and of course they did get a little better treatment, but Stalag stands for non-com, and I was in Stalag 17B, and I met a man here today who was in Stalag 17B, and it was a very notorious camp. And of course, I was an officer, but they couldn't move me because I was in bed all the time. I got shot down over Vienna, Austria, and I spent 3 months there, and then they sent me to Stalag when we got bombed out by the Americans, of course. They sent me to Stalag 17B, where I stayed 7 months until I was liberated by the Russians. And May 13th, they had to fight their way all the way to Linz, Austria, where Stalin and Roosevelt and Chamberlain made a line, you can only go this far. The Russians had to fight their way all the way to Linz, Austria. Now, the Germans would have let the Americans come all the way to Vienna if they would have, but they just could only go so far. And so I stayed there till I was liberated, and finally they allowed a couple ambulances to come in and pick us up, and we were 40 miles from the Linz, Austria at that time. But I did meet a person here from Stalag 17B. In fact, I've met quite a few over the years, and I don't know how many. There must have been about 4,200. This gentleman here was in Stalag 17B. There were about 4,200 right there in the camp. So, one of those things, I was just like being born again when I reached the American lines. You got white sheets, you had nurses, which I hadn't seen here, and you tried to get some food, and the food they gave you was too rich for you to keep it down. So being an American, I